Right, I want to talk about the migrant madness that could be very well making sure, actually, that the NHS is deeply unsafe. Even The Guardian is saying it. You know that even if The Guardian is questioning things, then things must be pretty serious for the NHS. Because people have been actually coming forward, openly tweeting, using X to display their disregard for rules and regulations when it comes to having the right qualifications to ensure safeguarding and all the rest of it. So this tweet here says, this is true, and it's talking about, I didn't realise African kids were working out here doing their parents' university work. No wonder so many nurses seem mad. They're not qualified. Now, she says, this is true. This is why I don't care. I make it clear I don't want to be treated by them in hospital. I mean, you know, that's a pretty serious allegation in and of itself. And these tweets, there are more of them, all over Twitter, making clear, and I think The Guardian highlighted Nigeria in particular, but this hashtag Free Palestine account, there's The Guardian report, NHS nurses being investigated for industrial-scale qualifications fraud, and well, as I said there...
So who's not checking the authenticity?
No, they
of the
are checking them. In this Guardian report, they actually argue that it's been... the qualification section is being completed by proxy. So it's being completed... you know, it isn't the individual that's coming over here.
I did a story in yesteryear at my time on newspapers of people who can buy dissertations online, university dissertations. So someone will write it for you for, like, I don't know, a couple of grand, and you'll submit them to the university. And most of the time, they pass.
Right, we had one more tweet. I just want to show you the extent to which this was all over Twitter. And so Audrey says, I could tell you all about the septic shock. I mean, good God, just saying. And the quote tweet there, I didn't realise African kids were actually out there doing their parents' university. That's the one that we had before. I mean, honestly, there are loads of these. There are a whole collection, that Free Palestine one. People in the quote tweets are bare surprised. When you spend time in hospital, you'll see the frauds left, right and centre.
And bare surprised means very surprised for people that don't know London slang. Look, I am absolutely shocked to read about this story.
Why would you tweet it?
Well, why would you tweet it, first of all? And one of the tweets referenced septic shock. I actually had septic shock. I nearly died not too far away from here, just at the hospital, St Mary's Hospital across the canal. And to think that nowadays we are not checking people's qualifications properly, and actually people are faking their qualifications in order to game the system to get a job in our cherished NHS, I think that is shocking. Look, we do have a nursing shortage in this country. That does, unfortunately, require that we have to bring in immigrant nurses from other countries. But the thought that they are gaming the system is appalling.
Steph, is it ever OK, say someone fraudulently qualifies as a nurse, but they do a good job for decades and decades and they're loved by their patients and colleagues, is that ever OK?
Well, I don't think it's OK that they are cheating the system, but if these people are actually filling the gap where British nurses are not standing up or not filling for the lack of nurses we have in this country, then they're actually helping people. And what I hate about these stories is that it taints, in particular, African nurses with a bad image. You know, most of these nurses come in here because they're passionate about helping patients, and this is what we got a lack of in this country. And in this story, they've said, look, the NHS are onto it now. They're going to be investigating this, but they said these people may potentially get a second chance because the NHS know that they provide value to a crumbling system.
Yeah, I love that, because it goes back to the argument about whether you need to go to uni anyway to survive in life.
Well, I should bloody well hope the NHS is taking it seriously. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't want to be treated by someone that doesn't know what they're doing, if that's the case.
Well, the NHS is the 7th largest employer in the world, not just the largest in the UK, right? So it's 1.2 million people who work in the NHS. Now, there'll always be rotten apples, but this is a drop in the ocean compared to the amazing work that most of the employees of the NHS.
Yeah, but it's, even if there's one, it's quite a big deal, because that could mean life or death, you know?
I mean, and actually, I would argue that this means we ought to get serious about homegrown talent and actually ensuring that people in this... I don't think you should pay for a degree to become a nurse or a doctor. And, in fact, going back to what Ben Leo just said, maybe it's not... I don't need to say your full name now, do I?
There's only one Ben Leo tonight.
I don't actually... I think it's probably unnecessary. You know, back in the day, we all managed to survive with nurses that didn't have more degrees than goodness only knows what. Steve Jobs, did he have a degree? I don't think he did.
Richard Branson never went to uni.
A whole host of people. It strikes me as wrong, but I do think we need a laser-like focus on actually homegrown recruitment and ensuring that there are incentives here, and we're not just sending people off to Australia, for example.
Well, it goes to show how passionate you are. If you want to become a qualified nurse, I'm sure there's people out there who will scrimp and save to make sure that they do get that qualification. I know it's hard times, but if you want it bad enough, you'll go hard for it.
I also think when it comes to getting nurses and doctors from abroad, I think there's something inherently cruel about rich Western economies relying on poorer countries to get their healthcare workers, when actually Nigeria needs nurses more than Britain does. Ghana needs nurses more than Britain does. So does the Philippines. And yet we're taking all of the best talent and bringing it here. So there is actually, I think, a progressive and fair case for bringing down immigration, because it's not right that this brain drain is happening.
I mean, Kai, that's never going to happen under your party, is it? Mass migration is... Well, Tony Blair loved it.
Was he a Conservative?
Couldn't get enough of it. Tony Blair opened the taps and said, more, more, more.
And it's hardly changed in 13, 14 years of Tory government.
I
mean,
agree.
why are we still talking about things that happened 2 decades ago? I mean,
well, because you're coming back. It's the worst comeback since I don't know what.
and the proof will be in the pudding. Success of the
Well, I was going to say I look forward to eating it, but I certainly don't. But do we have a problem then? Do you think actually migration is putting the country at risk?
No, I don't. I think migration in some sectors it is, but in some sectors like the NHS is actually helping it. You know?
I mean, not if you have someone that doesn't know what...
But hang on, this is a genuine question. Why can't we get British nurses?
Well, we're simply... I think that the incentives aren't there, right? You're saddling nurses, and the debt as well.
But hang on, Darren. Haven't we had debates on this show about the nurses going on strike and you saying, oh, they're greedy for wanting a 35% pay increase? Yet you're here saying the incentives... Well, whatever pay increase, the nurses have been on strike and you will have made the argument that they shouldn't be striking, and yet you're here saying the incentives aren't good enough.
Well, no, I think they have an argument to ask for more money, but I think the process of striking and putting people's lives at risk is the wrong way to go about it. I think
so how should they go about it?
I don't know off the top of my head, but striking at the busiest time of the year, particularly over Christmas, is not the way to go about it. Leaving A&Es short and even closed in some areas of the country isn't the way to go about it.
They've got a pay rise out of it.
Because actually nurses and doctors and junior doctors, their first oath is do no harm, and by striking, demanding more money is doing harm, is killing people.
Well, I can imagine some of these unqualified migrant nurses were the ones that were still working while British junior doctors were striking.
Have you got what it takes to be a reasoned presenter? Well, send us a short clip of yourself to join@reasoned.uk and we might be seeing you on this very channel very soon indeed.